This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it makes me scared.
You know you can be falsely accused of things. Jesus was falsely accused. A lot of the prophets were falsely accused. You don't.
What type of statement is that? Your life is not on the line. Mine is.
This is Tory Lanez, the Grammy-nominated rapper, walking into court where he is facing charges of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, negligently discharging a firearm, and carrying an unregistered firearm in a vehicle. The incident which led to these charges unfolded on a summer night in July 2020 after a party at Kylie Jenner's home.
Before those tense moments, Meghan and Tory were seen on Instagram Live, hanging out in a pool with Kylie Jenner, reportedly at the reality star's home.
What began as a glitzy celebrity gathering spiraled into chaos when a dispute broke out in an SUV.
Rapper Tory Lanez has been charged with shooting artist Megan Thee Stallion during an argument. The DA's office says Lanez, whose legal name is Daystar Peterson, shot Megan's feet during an argument in the Hollywood Hills July 12th.
I hear this man screaming, he said, "Dance, bitch," and he started shooting. And like he shot a couple of times. I was really scared because I had never been shot at before.
In court, the prosecution laid out the evidence for the jury, including a call Tory Lanez himself made from jail.
No, she's probably never ever gonna talk to me ever again, but bruh, I just want you to know, bruh, nigga was just so drunk, nigga, didn't even know what the was going on, bro. I didn't even know what the was going on, bro, like that. I'd never do some shit like that, bro. Just that, I was so drunk, I just didn't even understand what was going on, bro. Like, you know, regardless, that's not gonna make anything right, and that's not gonna make my actions right, bro. But I'm just deeply sorry, bro. I never even moved like that, bro. Like, never moved like that at all, bro. Like,
put several witnesses on the stand, including Megan Thee Stallion herself.
Today, rapper Megan Thee Stallion arrived at a Los Angeles courthouse this morning where she testified about what she says happened on the night of July 12th, 2020. Performer Tory Lanez.
She also told the court that she had received death threats online since coming forward, and that she still lived with the physical and emotional scars.
It wasn't just what she said happened, it's how she said it. She was really emotional in court today. And she said, they're calling this the Megan Thee Stallion trial. I am not on trial. I wish he would have killed me. If I knew I would have to go through this torture, I wish he would have killed me. She dropped some bombshell. She says that Tory offered her $1 million to keep quiet. That he said, please don't say anything. And that he told her, I was already caught with a gun, I'm on probation.
The defense attorney tried to debunk the statement, saying that Megan was likely shot by Kelsey Harris, pointing to several inaccuracies in her statements previously.
The defense attorney said, you lied on national TV. Megan said, yes. He said, you lied to Detective Stockman. She said, yes. He said, you lied about having an intimate relationship with Tory. She said, yes. And then the defense attorney pressed her on some really granular details. And there were some moments where she said, I don't remember. I could have. Maybe. You could tell that he was really trying to poke holes in her story that she gave to her lawyers.
And they had a different story for the jury as to who had fired the gun that fateful night.
In today's opening statements, the defense painting this as a case about jealousy, saying Kelsey had a previous romantic relationship with Tory. They say it was actually Kelsey and Megan who got in an altercation that night.
They even claimed there was a witness who saw a female with a gun that night, and that meant the gun could not have possibly been shot by Tory Lanez.
The defense also said a witness saw a woman with a gun.
But prosecutors argued that it was Lanez who escalated the situation and he was the one who fired the gun. In December 2022, a Los Angeles jury convicted Tory Lanez of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, negligently discharging a firearm, and carrying an unregistered firearm in a vehicle. But Lanez himself never accepted the verdict. He still claims that he was innocent of the accusation and that it was all a complete setup.
Black card at me. I'm trying to protect this black man. My love, nobody ever reported that you got shot but you. So how were you trying to protect me? At what point were you trying to protect me? People like, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, yo, everybody just shunned me. I showed everybody love.
On August 8, 2023, Lanez was sentenced to 10 years in prison. As of 2025, he remains incarcerated at the California Correctional Institution. Tory Lanez might still insist he's innocent. Even after being convicted of shooting one of the biggest names in hip-hop, what happens when a teenage rapper who made a hit song about evading the police realizes he is spending a lot of years behind bars?
McIntyre will be eligible for parole, but he'll have to serve half of that sentence, 27.5 years, before he gets that opportunity.
This is Tamor Trayvon McIntyre, better known by his stage name, Tay-K, inside a Texas courtroom, now no longer the teenage rapper whose song went viral, but a convict facing the weight of 2 murder charges. But Tay-K's story didn't start with a courtroom appearance or a life sentence. It started with a plan, hatched in 2016, inside a suburban Mansfield home. Tay-K was just 16 years old when he and 6 others, one of them the victim's ex-girlfriend, conspired to rob 17-year-old Zachary Belote. The idea was simple. The ex-girlfriend would be the bait, let the crew into the house, and from there, they would steal drugs or money. But when the group stormed into the house, they didn't find just one person. Inside was also 21-year-old Ethan Walker, an unarmed man caught completely off guard. And in the middle of that botched robbery, one of Tay-K's co-conspirators opened fire, Walker was shot dead, and Belote was injured.
Well, everybody left the room, and the one guy was at the front of my room in the doorway, and I was right in front of the bed, like pretty much point-blank range. And he sat there and hesitated for about 2 minutes with one hand, and when he grabbed it with 2 hands, that's when I knew he was going to pull the trigger.
Though Tay-K didn't pull the trigger, the authorities knew he played a key role. He helped plan the robbery, he was present when it happened, and he fled afterward. And under Texas law, that made him just as responsible. Tay-K was first arrested and held in juvenile detention. He was questioned and then put on house arrest under the supervision of his sister with an ankle monitor strapped on. But Tay-K didn't want a second chance. On March 26, 2017, after 8 months of electronic monitoring, he tweeted the now infamous words, "Faust dis house arrest." That same night, he and friend Jalen Bell sliced off their ankle monitors and vanished. What followed was a 96-day manhunt, with Tay-K hopping from state to state, dodging law enforcement, and racking up more charges. In May of that year, while still on the run, Tay-K and Bell lured 23-year-old photographer Mark Anthony Saldivar to a Chick-fil-A parking lot in San Antonio to buy camera equipment. But what the young photographer didn't know at the time was that he was walking into a planned robbery ambush. Surveillance footage and witness testimony showed Saldivar's last moments before being shot and killed. Tay-K and Bell stole his gear and fled the scene. On June 30th, 2017, U.S. Marshals finally tracked Tay-K down in New Jersey. But by then, it was too late to undo what he'd already done because Tay-K had done something no defense attorney could ever prepare for. While on the run, he recorded a music video, a track titled The Race. And this wasn't just a song, it was a full-blown confession. The lyrics boasted about running from the law, skipping court, and dodging the case. And what was even more devastating to any defense he might come up with later, the video showed Tay-K posing right in front of his own wanted poster. The song dropped just hours after his arrest, and it blew up with millions of streams. Tay-K soon became the teenage fugitive who turned overnight rap celebrity.
But look, as we watching this for real, he's not playing.
But for prosecutors, Tay-K had simply nailed his own coffin, and in court, they were ready to show that the race wasn't just music, it was motive and evidence. And when his trial began in 2019, the prosecution played The Race in court. They dissected the lyrics, arguing that this was not the voice of a scared, impressionable kid. This was someone who glorified the very crimes he was being tried for, and most especially, someone who had no remorse for his actions. During the victim impact statements, Ethan Walker's family told the court that while the world danced to Tay-K's beat, they were still grieving a son who never came home.
Every time we look up, it seems like we're seeing news about the song, seeing praise about the song, and seeing you literally dancing on Ethan's grave. But you've gotten enough attention.
You're still here. You're still here. My son is gone. He's a box of ashes, sitting in my living room.
Tay-K's attorneys argued he was just a teenager, immature, impulsive, influenced by older friends. They said he never pulled the trigger and that he ran because he panicked.
But he stood up here yesterday in front of you and in front of this court and accepted responsibility for what he agreed to do and what he participated in, and pled guilty to the robbery by threats using a gun, threatening somebody with a gun in counts 3 and counts 4. The girls planned this.
But the jury didn't see a cry for help. They saw a cold performance and a song of defiance, and they convicted him of murder and aggravated robbery in the death of Ethan Walker.
Find the defendant, Tamar Trevon McIntyre, guilty of the lesser included offense of murder.
Tay was sentenced to 55 years in prison. Under Texas law, he won't even be eligible for parole until he's served at least half, about 27 years behind bars.
McIntyre will be eligible for parole, but he'll have to serve half of that sentence, 27 and a half years, before he gets that opportunity.
But Tay legal journey wasn't over. Fast forward to 2025, 5 years after the first sentence, and Tay was back, once again inside a courtroom. This time, facing the charge for the murder of Mark Anthony Saldivar, the young photographer gunned down in that Chick-fil-A parking lot. And once again, the courtroom listened to the surveillance footage from that day and the ballistic reports. Tay was found guilty. This time, the judge handed down an additional 80 years in prison.
All right, Mr. McIntyre, the jury found you guilty of murder. Your punishment is to be assessed at 80 years in the prison.
From behind bars, Tay continues to tweet of the life he claims was taken away from him, but for his victims' families, their loved ones would never come home. Tay made a song about running from the law until he was caught, but how does that compare to a man who turned a car into a weapon at a Christmas parade and showed no remorse, even after receiving one of the longest prison sentences ever?
Although largely symbolic, given the number of years that I have imposed here today, because frankly, you deserve it.
This is Darrell Brooks Jr., a rapper who is in court facing 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, along with over 70 other charges for an attack that turned a Christmas parade into a mass casualty scene. On November 21st, 2021, in Waukesha, Wisconsin, Brooks drove his red Ford Escape SUV through the barricades of the city's annual holiday parade. Then he accelerated and let the vehicle loose, straight into the crowd. Authorities say he was going about 40 miles per hour when he struck dozens of people. 6 were killed and another 62 others injured.
We have about 10 to 15 people down in the street. We also got multiple carnival tanks.
Among them were children dancing in formation, elderly citizens marching in bands, and their families and loved ones cheering them on the sidelines.
Chelsea, with my mama. We don't care.
Officers had to fire shots at the SUV to stop the rampage. It was only after the vehicle came to a halt and Brooks fled the scene on foot that officers were able to catch him at a different location. But the chaos Darrell had cost the city would continue right in the courtroom at his own murder trial. First, Brooks pleaded not guilty, and then he fired his public defenders and chose to represent himself, despite having no formal legal training.
Everyone in this room has been taught pretty much as far back as we can remember is that there's always 2 sides to every story.
From that moment on, the trial turned into a spectacle.
What type of statement is that? Your life is not on the line. Mine is. And you think that I think this is funny?
I don't think it's funny whatsoever.
So I think, Your Honor, with all due respect.
Brooks disrupted court processes, repeatedly bringing up fringe legal theories tied to the sovereign citizen movement.
So we're not going to address subject matter jurisdiction that has yet to be proven for the record.
For the record, I have addressed it.
No, you haven't proven it for the record.
And your objections noted for the record.
Have you proven subject matter jurisdiction for the record? Have you proven it?
Even the judge was not spared of his antics.
From 2003, criminal trespass to dwelling from 2006.
All right, I need to take a break. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist, frankly.
Still, the prosecution pressed forward. They laid out a timeline, played the footage from the incident, and presented eyewitness after eyewitness. The evidence was overwhelming.
Marching with the Grannies, this is her first parade. You'll see a diagram of where she was positioned. You'll see video of her getting struck. The medical examiner will tell you that Tamara Durand, cause of death, multiple blunt force traumatic injuries.
On October 26, 2022, the jury returned a unanimous verdict, guilty, on all 76 charges.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Daryl E. Brooks, guilty of first-degree intentional homicide as charged in count 3 of the information.
Judge Dorow sentenced him to 6 consecutive life sentences, plus 763 years for the additional charges.
Although largely symbolic, given the number of years that I have imposed here today, because frankly, you deserve it.
Daryl mocked the courtroom and disrespected the judge, but what happens when a former platinum rapper is dragged back into court, not for a hit single, but for a horrifying sex trafficking ring?
On count 10, life in confinement.
This is John Michael Hakeem Gibson, also known as the Atlanta rapper, K.O.U.T., and he is in a Fulton County courtroom facing charges of rape, sex trafficking, aggravated sodomy, and racketeering. Gibson rose to fame in 2011 with his platinum-certified hit Cashin' Out, a song that climbed the Billboard Hot 100 and earned him a record deal with Epic. But a decade later, he would no longer be celebrated in clubs or music charts because when music no longer brought him money, Gibson decided to weaponize his fame, using his celebrity status and social media presence to lure women into a dark underworld which was masked as a music empire.
The Georgia prosecutors told me it was Cash Out's failing music career that led him down this path. They went through dozens of pages of bank statements that showed he made thousands more by pimping women versus the money he made from his career.
But Gibson was not acting alone. Authorities say he had help from his cousin, Tyrone Taylor, and from his own mother, Linda Smith, known in industry circles as Mama Ka. Together, they ran a label called Pyrex Music Group LLC, but prosecutors claimed it was nothing more than a front, a storefront window hiding a system of exploitation, abuse, and human trafficking.
The victims testify that they performed certain acts because they didn't want to get beaten. They didn't want to get run over. They didn't want to get hit in the head with a gun.
The crimes allegedly took place in an Atlanta hotel room near Fulton Industrial Boulevard and at a residence in Carroll Heights, where victims were reportedly held at gunpoint and assaulted. Prosecutors called it one of the most calculated cases of celebrity-fueled sex trafficking they had seen.
So you did have Gwinnett. You had Lowndes County, you had DeKalb County, you had Fulton County, you had so many counties implicated that we were able to bring in those crimes under the RICO statute.
In court, prosecutors laid the details out for the jury, including the money trail from the sex trafficking business.
500, 500, 900, 600, 600.
Prosecutors laid out a money trail for jurors.
3 check card purchases at Backpage.com.
Alleging Atlanta rapper Cash Out, whose given name is John Gibson, and his mother, Linda Smith, had an enterprise profiting from prostitution. Investigators shared his findings from bank statements connected to at least 4 different bank accounts spanning from 2013 to 2022.
The defense protested the admission of the documents, claiming they were simply hearsay.
My concern, obviously, and my objection on the record would be that these are hearsay, that they're simply allegations, they're pleadings, and they're not final judgments. So for those reasons, Your Honor, I would object to these documents.
But the prosecution pushed back.
Relevant as to showing the outflow of money from Kiara Adams' bank account and used to benefit Linda Smith here, who's the at least registered lessee of this location.
They even put witnesses on the stand, victims of Cash Out's sex trafficking.
In my life, I will fear that they will kill me. I will never forget the times that he threatened to kill me with a gun, even firing gunshots indoor wherever we were. All because he was mad that I didn't want to go out and do what he wanted me to do.
They violated me, assaulted me, and attempted to market and sell me for the purposes of prostitution.
I really did trust him when I met him. He promised me that I would get my kids back, which was a big effect on my life because at the time, that's all I wanted was to have my kids in my life. So, I thought I would be able to go back home, have things for my kids, and be able to get my kids back in my life. But that was empty promises.
The jury filed out and came back with a verdict. Guilty.
As to the conspiracy to violate subsection A of the Georgia RICO Act, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty. Trafficking a person for sexual servitude, we find the defendant guilty.
But even after the verdict, Gibson showed no signs of remorse, even with the families of his victims in court, reminding him that they hadn't forgotten.
He and his mom literally stole the souls of all the women that they victimized. This is evident in our daughter's case, as what he did to her defined her what she is today. She has been traumatized to the point she can't even be a mother to her own children, using his one-hit wonder status to steal their person. He and his mom literally stole the souls of all the women.
Dear John Michael Hakeem Gibson, you don't deserve prison. Prison would be too good of a place for you. But since the death penalty is not an option, I pray that you never know peace, and that your soul will never return to this realm after it leaves.
Instead, he addressed the court, still claiming that he was innocent of all the charges.
Person to come up here and, show remorse to, crimes that they have done. But if you know me, and people who really know me know that I wouldn't force anybody to do anything. Grown women. Nothing was forced. Nothing was coerced or anything of that nature. If you notice before this trial,
he even compared himself to Jesus Christ.
It takes me back to the Bible. When you have that confidence and you can be falsely accused of things. Jesus was falsely accused. A lot of the prophets were falsely accused. You don't head high, or if you see me smiling, it's because I know at the end of the day, through Jesus Christ, the Most High will always give you the actual judgment.
But during the judge's address, it was clear that the courtroom did not believe Cashout's statement.
Court heard and viewed evidence demonstrating the very worst of human behavior toward other human beings.
On July 21st, 2025, the sentence was handed down: life in prison for plus an additional 70 years for racketeering, sex trafficking, firearm possession, and related charges.
On count 1, violation of the Georgia RICO Act, 20 years to serve in confinement to run consecutive with count 10. On count 10, life in confinement.
Cashout claimed innocence even as victims described horrors that no courtroom testimony could fully capture. But our next case is a rapper who is facing life in prison after his bullet meant for a rival gang member killed a child. This is Antonio Davenport Jr., better known as Lil Tony, and he is standing in a North Carolina courtroom facing charges of murder. On August 14, 2019, Lil Tony was assaulted by rival gang members in broad daylight on a Durham street. It wasn't just the beating that made headlines, it was the fact that the attack was filmed and shared online, a digital humiliation meant to strip Lil Tony of any gang credibility he had left. Just weeks later, Lil Tony, along with fellow gang member Derek Smack Dixon of the 8 Trey Gangsta Crips, planned a drive-by shooting in North Durham. Armed with a 9mm and a .40 caliber handgun, they parked in a van, waiting for the right moment to ambush someone they believed was connected to the men who attacked him. Except that they got it wrong.
We were sitting in the living room and we heard pop, 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 pop. And I remembered counting them.
Lori Kaufman remembers that August day in 2019 like it was yesterday.
They sounded really close, and I don't see anybody outside, but I think something happened close by here.
The vehicle Lil Tony and other members of his gang opened fire on wasn't driven by a rival gang member like they had thought. It was a vehicle that was 9-year-old Zion Person and his cousins. And when they fired 22 bullets into the SUV, little Zion was hit, and unfortunately, did not survive the attack.
Zion Person was in a car with family members in August heading to get ice cream. He was shot in a drive-by along Duke Street and Leon Street. The 9-year-old died at the hospital. Another child was shot in the arm.
And if that wasn't disturbing enough, Lil Tony was wearing an ankle monitor at the time of the shooting, and the reason was because of a separate domestic violence case. In fact, the police detectives were able to trace the GPS data from that same monitor to place him right at the scene of the crime. Also, the detectives found surveillance footage from a nearby middle school that showed and confirmed Lil Tony's Honda trailing the SUV seconds before the fatal shots. When he was arrested days later, investigators already had everything they needed. The digital footprint, the video, the surveillance, there was no escaping it. During the trial, Lil Tony remained defiant, even spitting on a court-martial during one of his hearings. He was found guilty of murder on May 11, 2021, and given a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Outside the courtroom, the family of the victim celebrated the sentencing.
A release of emotions years in the making.
At peace. My baby got justice. He's not here.
I'm going to forever be in pain. But to know that they're gone for life definitely makes me happy.
The victim's grandmother was not present in court. At the sentencing, also spoke to the reporters over the phone.
I know I just broke the news to you, guilty on all counts. What is going through your mind?
All I can do is just say thank you, Jesus. We got justice for Zion. I'm just so happy right now. These are happy tears. These are seriously happy tears.